You're listening to the Into the Woods podcast with your hosts, Dermot and Michael. Let's get into it.
Wonderful chase by Hinshaw.
Cox again. I cannot believe it. Dacos nearly runs out of room. He's fouled.
Jamie Elliott has won the game of footy for this famous club.
Slap for Nick Dacos. He's going to be the hero. The little champ is going to kick the winner.
Here's the Degoe moment. He unloads. Bang! You need your stars. And Collingwood stars just went and wrenched the cup back.
If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. For Spotify and Apple listeners, a 5-star rating will be greatly appreciated. Make sure you hit the bell icon on any of those platforms to be notified as soon as new episodes are released. You can find us on X at Into the Woods Pod and on Instagram at Into the Woods Pod 10. Thanks for your ongoing support by helping the podcast grow. Go Pies! Welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, brought to you by mattsprintshop.com.au. I'm your host Dermot, and for the next hour or so, we'll be talking about all things Collingwood. Once again, I'm joined by Michael. How are you, Mick?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Not bad. Saw one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life last night, and for some reason, I watched the whole way through. I don't even know why I watched the whole way through.
Name of the movie, please.
I think it was Long Legs. It's on Netflix.
What's it about?
FBI pursuit for a killer. It's just god awful. It's Nicolas Cage. I should have known better. Nicolas Cage has not even tried for about 40 years. He doesn't put any effort into any of his movies. Like in the mid-'80s, he made Birdie and Raising Arizona, which were both good movies. Since then, he's just rested on his laurels. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He will get his $20 million movie regardless. It was awful.
If you're after a crime show on Netflix, His and Hers, number one on Netflix at the moment, quite good. Normally I'm normally not into American crime, but that was good. I'm more of a UK man, but yeah, I'll recommend that one. A bit of a twist at the end in the last episode, so it'll keep you hooked, Mick.
Yeah, I don't pay much heed to your recommendations, Dermot.
All right, well, you continue to watch Nicolas Cage then, all right?
Yeah, okay, you're right here. Yes, yeah.
All right,
yeah, other than that, yeah, all well, thank you.
So let's get stuck into explaining what this episode is all about, Mick. So I feel like I'm swimming naked here. This is the first time in I reckon 74 or 75 episodes that I've come in with no notes, just a microphone here, a microphone over there, and it's just the two of us having a chat. It's having a chat. It's what the podcast was originally meant to be when we first started. It was meant to be really raw and rogue, and over time we've moved away from that. But this is the moment. This is the moment you've been waiting for, Mick, because I know you've wanted this type of episode for a while, and we pretty much did that for our first ever episode. We sat down and we basically talked about ourselves and our history as Collingwood supporters, our favourite moments, our favourite past plays, just everything was on the table so the listeners could get to know us before we really started our actual podcast journey. I know you don't like that word, Mick, but I'm going to go there.
So what I've been waiting for is to repeat our first ever episode. You said this is the moment I've been waiting for. To repeat that, I've been waiting to repeat our first. Why doesn't the listeners just go back and listen to our first episode?
No, don't do that. Do not do that, listeners.
But it'd be easier.
Basically, two reasons. Number one, it was shithouse. Yeah. It was the first time
I actually liked it.
It was awful. You had a voice. You put that voice on.
I did not know what you're talking about. I'll put this voice on.
Hello, listeners. My name is Michael. You're trying to come across as this well put together guy. But
intellectual, you might say.
Yes, and I was nervous as hell. It was not that I've had many good performances, but I think that one was up there in my worst performances. But yeah, basically, 95% of the people that probably listen to this now didn't listen to episode 1. because it was our first episode. We had no subscribers, we had nothing. We weren't even on YouTube. So the people that are watching us on YouTube, there's no way that they can go back unless they listen to
Well,
Spotify
Spotify. Yeah.
or Apple.
We'll listen to Spotify then.
Yeah, but the YouTube
Yeah.
viewers, they're YouTube people, Mick.
Okay.
So we're gonna do it again.
Okay,
We're gonna do
rightio.
it again, and
You reminded me of something when you said swimming naked. Over the summer, I saw the most unworthy news item I've ever seen in my whole life. All right. So what happened? I think it was the BBC, no less. So it wasn't like local news; it was worldwide news. This made worldwide news. I think it was on the coast of Scotland. This big log washed ashore, okay, on the coast of Scotland, and it stayed there for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. During that time, the locals christened it, I have to get this right, Lizzie the Loch Ness Monster. Okay, so they called it Lizzie the Loch Ness Monster. Okay, so they've got quite fond of this log over a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and then inevitably, a big swell came in and it's washed it away. All right, and somebody's got this grainy iPhone footage of it being washed back out to sea. That's it. That's the news report. The BBC went with that. Am I right
so
in saying
you've picked the most boring story
No,
to
well,
then
this is the point.
repeat on the podcast.
No, this is the point. How is it? It's just these days, if there's film of something, it's newsworthy. Well, this is a valuable lesson. Just because something has film of it doesn't make that something newsworthy. This thing happens this happens literally every day on coasts around the world. Driftwood comes in, driftwood goes out. Lizzie, the Loch Ness Monster made international news. The most useless news story I've ever heard in all my life.
And 90% of our viewers have now turned off, and they
Well,
will not.
and they should turn off. That's the point I'm making. It's not newsworthy.
No, turn this
It's
off.
nonsense. Yes, turn this. Yeah, turn this off. Turn it off.
It's funny that I'm a little bit nervous about this episode. It's funny that we're sort of repeating episode one because, like, obviously the audio and that was shocking. We could barely hear you that day, Michael. There was this echoing sound in your voice, and it was just everything about the episode
My
was
posh
bad.
voice.
And right now, I'm having a few technical difficulties on my end in terms of.
Oh, jeez.
Oh no, I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be okay. I think the audio is gonna be okay for the listeners, but for me, it's a little bit echoey in my headphones, which has never occurred. So we really are going back to episode one right now, Mick. It really is
Right.
like that kind of vibe right now. But yeah, that was about what 2 years ago. So I'm sure
What,
we're gonna
Lizzie the
come up
Loch
with
Ness Monster?
the
That was only
episode
weeks
one
ago.
2 years ago. So we're gonna
Wonder where Lizzie is now. Just like somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. Anyway, there you go.
You know what? I like posh Michael more.
Yeah, so do I actually. Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
I should
yes.
go back and listen to we should have listened to the first episode again so we knew what we were going to talk about.
Well, we're not going to repeat this. We're not going to go word for word.
But you're going to ask me the same question, so
I have no
what
idea.
did-
I can't remember what we really talked about. I
we
just
said,
remember.
yeah, favorite game.
I don't know.
That
It's
type
just a
of thing.
Favorite
Favorite
players,
players.
I've got
yeah.
no notes, but
Okay,
I
well,
will start. Well, you're the well. Actually, let's go all the way back for people that are listening that may not be aware, and I think most people would be. You and I are father and son.
Well,
So-
I'm waiting for that paternity test to come in, Dermot.
So that's basically a lot of our stories will probably have each other in it, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or I in particular will, because obviously my childhood, you were there for a lot of it. But we'll start with you being the older gentleman. Tell us a bit
Posh
about
gentleman.
tell us a bit
Yep.
about your upbringing as a Collingwood supporter, I guess.
All
and-
right. Okay. I'll just repeat. What did I say last
No,
year?
last year-
Just let me talk. Let me
2
talk.
years ago.
2 years ago. So, yeah, my father got me into Collingwood, as is normal for most families. You kind of barrack for who your father barracked for. I got 5 older brothers. They're all Mad Keen Pies supporters. But it goes right back to my grandmother, Dad's mum, who was born in the 1890s. She went to the 4 premierships in a row, 27 to 30. She was a Mad Keen supporter. So it started with her, went through to Dad, my 5 brothers, a couple of my sisters are into the Pies as well. So that's basically it. I started to follow them and started
You
to kind of go to
you've got
games in the late 70s.
you've got the other side of the family that's Melbourne as well. The
Yeah, yeah.
Melbourne connection with
My, yeah,
George Moody. Am I right in saying?
George Moody was my great grandfather. He was apparently a great player for Melbourne back in the uh, 1910 early 20th century anyway,
Am I
1910s,
right in saying
1915s.
he's a premiership player, isn't he? And
Oh,
Hall
I
of
think he's a
Fame member.
premiership player. Yeah, I think he's a Hall of Fame. He played for Victoria. He was apparently a famous following division of. So they had the Ruckman, the Ruck Rover, and the Rover. He was a famous um, part of a following division, like you had famous centre lines and so forth. So forth. He was a famous following division
C-
of his day, George Moody. So apparently he was a great player.
Can I
Ruck
ask,
Rover.
did you ever nearly become a Melbourne supporter? Was that ever on the cards when you were a kid, or
No, it's never
no?
mentioned.
Well, a couple of your sisters are Melbourne, is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or
Couple of my sisters are Melbourne on the back of that because Mum was Melbourne because her grandfather, yeah, is George. So, um, yeah, yeah. But it was never a consideration. And Melbourne weren't very attractive back when I first started to follow in the kind of the mid to late 70s. As I said, started to go to the games in the late 70s. But yeah, Melbourne weren't very attractive back then. Attractive prospect. It didn't turn my head, let's say.
and I don't think it's gotten much better since then, has it?
No, not a hell of a lot better. So that they yeah, so it just kind of came into the pies in the traditional manner through your dad. Um, yeah. So started the yeah. What's a follow-up question?
No follow-up question. It's just a
Oh,
chat,
okay.
Mick. Just I got no notes. I
Oh,
got no
okay.
follow-up question. I'm just chatting to you. Well, I
Well,
guess
you're the host. If any, you're supposed to have notes. Then you're the host. If you don't have notes, then the whole thing is rudderless.
well, you're the one that says that you want these types of episodes where it's
Yeah, I know,
just
but
it's a free flowing,
normally,
natural sort of.
yeah, I know, but I'm talking mostly after a game where there's plenty to talk about, not when we're searching for things to
So
say.
basically, you're relying on me to carry you through this episode, and you're
Well,
upset that I'm not going to.
well, just feed me some questions at least. I don't know.
Well, I'll go. So yeah, for me,
Oh,
it was obviously very well, yes, Michael.
yeah, don't talk about that Adelaide game. Your favourite of again. You know how many times you've talked about that on the podcast? The one when Tarrant kicks the winning goal. That one. Don't
So
talk about
I'm
that.
sorry, I'm not allowed to talk about some of my memories.
No,
You're put.
no, not that memory. I'm sick of hearing about it.
That was a great game. That is one of my favorite memories.
Yeah, yeah.
People, I think it was round seven or round
Oh,
eight,
for
maybe
crying
round
out
nine,
loud.
2003. Go back and watch the last quarter of that. I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube. Collingwood Adelaide at Amy Stadium, Football Park. Everyone remembers that Tarrant goal after the siren, but that last quarter, even that last half in general, that was some of the most entertaining football you'll ever see. So I highly recommend for all our younger viewers and listeners that haven't seen that, go back and watch it. It was bloody awesome. Swoopy Magpie as well. Swoopy Magpie. For me, it was obviously well similar. You know, you supported the Pies because of your dad and your brothers, and I supported the Pies because of you. Um, I remember as a kid, and you'll be able to sort of fill in a few holes here, but I it took me a while to warm to Collingwood, but just football in general. Like I think you were saying at one point you're a bit maybe concerned that I wasn't going to like footy. I think throughout I was born in '94, so throughout the late '90s and stuff, I've basically got no memories. I know I did go to games with you at the G. And I just wasn't interested. I think you always used to talk about my favorite part of the games were before the game when the Magpie mascot came out, and then after the game, the old days when the tractor used to come onto the ground. What was the reason behind the tractor on the ground?
Oh, because everybody was waiting for the tractor. Is the wheel?
What did it actually do?
Oh, I don't know. Just something with the surface. I don't know.
Well,
I
you don't
never.
see it out there anymore. There's no
No,
tractors on
no,
the
I don't
ground
know.
anymore.
I'm not sure what the tractor did. It's not. Yeah, no, I can't help it. It's not like it was a cricket pitch and I had to tend to it. I don't know what the. I'm not sure.
There was a
Not sure.
period. I know that my Arnie's partner at the time was Richmond,
Oh
and
yeah,
I
yeah,
nearly turned to the dark side as a Richmond supporter because he had a little Richmond toy and Tiger rah rah rah, way cooler than a
yeah.
magpie, and he tried to turn me, and you wouldn't have a bar of that.
Oh no, I
Do
did. No, I did. I gave you the option. I said, sure, Tim, you can go and barrack for Richmond. You won't be living with me and your mother, but you can barrack for who you like. I said.
Was it ever close though? Because I can barely remember. Was it ever
No,
close
you
in the?
need look. You just don't give your kids a choice. There was no way you weren't going to barrack for Collingwood. If you're going to follow footy, you're going to barrack for Collingwood. If you weren't going to barrack for Collingwood, you weren't going to live with us. And I was being
But
serious.
that's the thing is I didn't
Fucking
really have
hell.
that emotional connection towards Collingwood or football at that time. I didn't care. All I knew was Bucks. I knew Bucks. I didn't know anyone else. It wasn't until I was about 7. It was 2002, and I was really into Pokemon and Pokemon cards. But we
And you
started
got
to.
rid of those, didn't you? You got rid of your Pokemon
I don't
cards.
know if I did. Don't get me started on that. You know how much they're worth these days?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I sold them a little. I think I sold them at fucking cash converters when I was like 18
Dermot,
to make
Jesus.
some quick cash, and fuck me. Anyway, that's that's a different story. But I think it was around about that time. Kids at school were sort of like not really into Pokemon anymore, and they were into footy, and I wanted something to fill the void of, Pokemon cards. And I remember I was in a news agency and I saw footy cards. I thought, oh yeah, can you, or I think it was either you or mum, whoever was there. I asked you guys to buy me a packet, and you did. And I still remember my first card that I got was current Richmond coach Adam Uze. Um, and that's kind of where my love for football started, because I started collecting cards. I started to learn players. Um, you okay? For our listeners, I think Michael has died. Are you okay, Mick?
Oh, let's talk about something else.
No.
Jesus.
And that's sort of where my love started for football, basically from footy cards. We started swapping them at school, and because of that, I then started watching the games, and it was pretty much around that 2002 era. It started 2002. I collected the cards, so started to learn to play, started to watch the game, started to love the game and the club, and then luckily it kind of helped because that was that 2002 season was the year where we went from, right near the bottom to obviously a grand final. And I remember in that one year, I just became so invested. The 2002 grand final, I remember that was my first real football memory. Is after we lost, just absolutely bawling my eyes out. I watched a game at Nan and Pa's house, the old parents, and just running
Mm.
into their room and just crying and crying and crying. And one of my
I
best
think that's what killed them in the end.
one of my best mates from primary school, he was Brisbane as well, which made it even harder. But hey, we got to have our revenge. 21 years later,
Mm.
2003 fucking stung as well. Those being your first two sort of football memories, 02, 03 grand final losses, really set me up well to be a Collingwood supporter. Because I remember after 2002, you came back from the game, you were there, and you said to me, "Dermot, you got to get used to it as a Collingwood supporter."
Yeah, well, that's the truth of it. Like if you're going to barrack for Collingwood, you're going to experience a lot of heartache.
That was
There
that
was,
was
there, yeah.
That was the time. Am I right in saying that was the last time you had a sip of alcohol? You're not a drinker anymore. 2002 grand final.
Yeah. I was plied with alcohol by my brothers and their mates at Cricketers Arms, I think it was. After the game, I was not in good shape. I was not in good shape because I
Have
didn't
you?
drink at all, and they just kept on. I don't know, I was spirits. Well, I'm not sure what it was, but I just remember catching the train home, and it was packed. Even a few hours after the game, it was packed, and I couldn't maintain my posture in the train seat, and my whole body was slumped over. I felt my head just waving from side to side with everybody's eyes on me. And I'm a non-drinker.
I think you've
I
been a
felt like
bit
telling them I
paranoid.
don't
People were
drink.
not just looking at you.
Everybody was looking at me. Everyone.
It's all about you. Right.
And yeah, that was awful. Anyway,
Well, go on. So your early childhood memories, I guess, then
oh,
is
okay.
Collingwood. So, oh well,
Right, early
we'll take it
childhood
in
mem
turns and just sort of like.
Okay, early childhood memories. I remember watching I wasn't at the 77 grand final, but I remember watching it on TV. That was the first telecast grand final. That was tough. Um, yeah, the early days. My favourite of the game was the 81 semi-final against Fitzroy. When we were, I think it was even the famous 44 points up at one stage we were. And again, it was around about half time. And Fitzroy came storming back. They got even late in the last quarter. I haven't watched this game for years. I'm only going from memory. Late in the last quarter, they got back. They got back in front by a couple of goals, and it looked like it was all over. like people, Collingwood supporters were going home, along with my auntie being one of them. She went home early. And then Matt Rendell, I remember, was running into an open goal from about 25 metres out, which would have absolutely sealed it. He missed. And then the Pies kicked a couple of quick goals with Ross Brewer kicking the sealer over his head in the goal square. That was the best game I've ever been to, and that stands were just absolutely rocking. Yeah.
You say that I talk about the Chris Tarrant game a lot. The amount of times you've mentioned this game, Mick, on the pod,
Well,
I reckon you've mentioned that game more than I've mentioned
you
Chris
keep on
Tarrant.
asking. So yeah, a couple of late goals. Dace kicked a late goal. Craig Davis, who was one of my favourites in the time, he kicked a late one. So yeah, then of course I was at the '81 grand final. Fucking hell. Well, 21.
It's good to see
Everybody,
you're over it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure most people remember it. Late in the third quarter, we got to 21 points up. I think Mark Williams kicked the goal running in, put us 21 up. And then with a couple of minutes to go, Ashman kicked one. Carlton's mosquito fleet at the time. Ashman's kicked one, and it was another one of them. Mosquito. It might have been your mate Alex Marcoux or
My
Kenny
mate.
Sheldon, One of them kicked another one, and they closed the gap to 9 points. And we just, yeah, the writing felt like it was on the wall at that stage. And they ran over the top of us, and they won by 20 in the end. And it was another example of the famous philosophy of Tommy Hafey, which is train your players in as hard in the week leading up to the grand final as you would in the preseason. He trained the Collingwood players to hell and back in the weeks leading up to grand finals, and they'd inevitably fall over in the last quarter, like they did in '79, like they did in '77. They had these 77. They had a 27-point lead going into three-quarter time. Blew that. North ran over the top of them. '79 of 20 odd, and as I've said with this '81 game, they were 21 points up deep in the third. Yeah, so that's basically that philosophy. I think cost them at least a couple of grand finals.
Did
So yeah, they're
how
the early
many grand
memories.
finals did you attend before 1990? Was that did you say you attended that one?
I attended '81. No,
Yeah.
I only went to '81 and '81, '90, 2002, 2010,
10 draw.
yeah, 2010. So that's four. I
Well,
didn't I didn't go I didn't go to '80. I think because Dad had the other at least a couple of other my brothers to take, and I think I missed out being the youngest. But yeah,
yeah. Tell me a little bit about 1990 because it's funny. Someone said to me at work a few weeks ago, they said, if you could get a time machine and live in 1 year in the past, where would you go and for what reason? This wasn't anything to do with sport or football, but I said I would go to 1990 for a couple of reasons. One, I want to be there for the 32-year premiership drought broken and watch the Pies, see what it was like afterwards. You know, we've seen all that famous footage. It looked absolutely fucking nuts. And then secondly, just football in general. Like see those key forwards, see Lockett, see Dunstall, see
mm.
Carey and Ablett Senior and all those guys. And obviously, not a key forward, but Peter Dacos. That would be the year I would choose to go back and get to experience, and purely just for football reasons. So tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
what 1990 was
Oh,
like, I guess.
well, that whole period, kind of late '90, because we're in the finals in '88, '89. So the period '88 through to about '92, they were great years because they were a top side, and kind of just generally speaking for a moment, just being able to go to Victoria Park in those years, like the play, like we just never lost there. It held whatever 35,000 thereabouts, give or take, depending on what OH&S rules were in place at the time. I mean, the most they got was like 47,000 back in the 40s or something. But anyway, just the place it was 95% Collingwood, if not more. And the place was just rocking, and they had a great side. So that was a great era. 1990 itself, yeah, it was a great year. The game, even though in retrospect you look back and it's obvious it was over kind of probably early into the third quarter. I'm just trying to remember. As a Collingwood supporter, having seen all those lost grand finals, you weren't taking that for granted. I don't think it was until really even into the last quarter. I remember Simon Madden having a set shot for goal, and he was a pretty good shot for goal. Like he was a great forward as well as a ruckman, and he was about 35 out, and he kicked into the man to mark. And I just thought, gee, this is our day. I knew we weren't going to lose it from that. And even then, we're probably still 7 goals up or whatever. We're never losing it anyway. But that was the only time I felt confident we'd win it.
We'll talk,
Uh,
talk about talk about after though. Well, were you a part of those celebrations?
uh, no. At Victoria Park, no, I didn't.
Where were you?
I,
What did you
I,
do
I,
after the game?
no, I went to a party, but I kind of, I wouldn't had I turned up at the ground. So I was at the game, and had I gone to Victoria Park, I would have refused to get in. This is a bit of a bugbear with me. So you had a group of supporters who had paid their memberships and supported this club for decades without a premiership. We finally win one. And what does Big Al McAllister do? Alan McAllister was the president at the time. He put a charge on the door, on the gate.
Huh.
Yeah, it was $5, which wasn't a lot of money, but more money back then. Of course, we are talking about 35
Yeah.
years ago, so it might have been equivalent to like $20 now, or whatever. What a nerve! Yeah, all these people wanted to, have been supporting the club for decades. They finally get return, and what does Big Al do? Put $5 on the gate. What a prick! I wouldn't have gone in, just
Wow.
out of principle.
After 2023, I was over in Melbourne for that one. And win the premiership, amazing, one of the greatest games ever. You're on top of the world. Let's head over to the AIA Centre and celebrate. That's where the players are going to be, the cup's going to be. Headed over with Oscar from the panel show. Headed over. We'd already been, drinking. There was like these bars and stuff outside the MCG and these tents. So we'd been there for an hour or so, drinking and celebrating. And then we thought, yeah, we'll make our way across. We get there and the gates are closed. So as people know, the Collingwood training ground, you can just walk in, but they've got these big gates. They've put these gates up so you can't get in. And I was looking, you can look through them. I'm looking, and the overwhelmingly looks half full. And the security is turning everyone away. Nah, you can't get in, can't get in. Like, we've just won a fucking premiership. The oval is only half full. Let us in, you dickhead. And as you can imagine, we're not the only ones there. There's a bunch of us, and the Collingwood supporters again restless, and they start shaking the gate. Anyway, these two legends, these two big boys, big Collingwood supporters, they just barge through everyone. They get the gate and they rip it down, and we all sprint in. And security just ends up standing back because they're like, "Well, what are we gonna do?" And everyone just piles in. It was like, get the fuck out of our way! Like Jesus, we've just won a flag. Half the oval's still
Yeah,
free.
yeah.
Absolute.
I know
No, the world is crazy, but yeah, we
it's a bit
got in the
miserable.
end. So, um, yeah, like for me, from my grand final experiences, they don't really add up to yours. You've been through a lot more shit, and you got to see 1990. My favorite era is like 2006 to maybe 2012, that sort of era, which included the flag. But in terms of like me getting to go to these games, once I got to a certain age and I could afford a decent membership, I've seen quite a lot in the last few years, which I'm really really happy about. It started in 2018. Actually, 2018, I wasn't a Legends member at that point. I think it might have been 20. It was 2019 was the year I became a Legends member because I realized how hard it would be for me to get a grand final ticket if it got back there. But 2018. Obviously, we played the Eagles in that famous Dom Shea grand final, and we live in Tassie, so I flew over and organised with my mate's boss's husband who worked at Coles. Didn't know him, lined up a grand final ticket with him for I think it was like $1,200 or something crazy like that. Hence why I became a Legends member the next year because I thought, well, we're in the window. I'm actually, if we can make a grand final again, I'll be able, probably save money just being the Legends member. Anyway, lined it up with him. He wanted it all in cash as well, so I had to get it out, I think, in two separate loads because I don't think you can get out that much at once. Anyway, walking around, it wasn't until wasn't until the morning of the grand final that I was able to get tickets. So overnight, I'm still worried. I'm thinking, oh shit, like is it going to fall through? So I got the cash out, walking through Melbourne with $1,200 cash in my pocket, a bit nervous. At this point, I didn't know what I was walking into. He wanted to meet me at a certain pub in Richmond, across from the MCG. Are you aware of this pub, Michael?
It's probably the one I had my exposure to alcohol to in 2002, wasn't it? Cricketers
Well,
Arms or
as my
Cricketers
father,
Arms?
I hope not, because I don't want to imagine you in a place like that. I walk in and I get there before him, and I sit at the bar and I'm just like looking around, and this is like 9 o'clock in the morning. You got some pretty sad people
It
that are
wasn't a
drinking at
house of
9 o'clock in the morning.
it wasn't
Huh?
a house of ill repute, was it? It
No.
sounds very seedy.
Anyway, I'm on my phone and I glance up, and all of a sudden I see topless waiters walking around. Oh, geez.
Waiters or waitresses?
Waitresses are not
Okay,
wait.
right. I think that would be a really seedy place.
And I was just, oh shit. And anyway, he walks in and we swap, and he's like, look, I'll walk you up to the gate. At this point it was about 10 o'clock. He's like, I'll walk you up to the gate. You can get in. I think they had like the NAB, the under 18s grand final. And he said, because he wasn't 100% sure if I'd be able to get in. So because he had a certain AFL membership or something. So he's like, walk out to the gate and see if you can get in. He's like, but once you're in, if you decide to leave, I'm not coming back to help you get back in. So anyway, we walk out of this seedy little pub, and people are walking past, walking their dogs, and I'm putting my head down. How embarrassing! Get to the game, get in. That's all good. And then yeah, I couldn't leave again because obviously I was at risk of not getting back in. So I sat there from about 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. onwards, waiting for this game, and yeah, it was the most heartbreaking moment as my time as a Collingwood supporter. It was just I remember afterwards, just I as soon as the siren went, I jumped up, barged through all the people in the aisle, didn't even ask them to move their legs. I feel bad, but anyway. And the moment I got out, I just bawled my eyes, and then a couple of older ladies who were there, not at the game, but they were outside the MCG waiting for their son who was a Collingwood supporter. They were Bulldogs fans. They remember them. I was like crying under a tree. They came and they picked me up and they gave me a little cuddle. It was, yeah, but but then luckily, there was so much heartbreak that led up to 23 for me. The next year I went to the prelim in 2019. That was devastating in a whole different sort of way.
Did you cry
Um,
again?
I can't remember,
Did you cry?
probably. Obviously 2020, 2021 were affected by COVID. But then luckily went over, got to go over. 2022 was the greatest ride imaginable as a Collingwood supporter. That was just an unbelievable year. And we obviously went all the way to the prelim up at the SCG against the Swans and lost by a point. And I was lucky enough to go up to that game as well. So I got to go to sort of heartbreak in 2018, 2019, 2022 live. And then, yeah, getting to be there in 2023 for the grand final. It was a great. I went to the qualifying final that year. I think you did as well against the D's.
Oh
Then,
yes,
yeah,
that's the one that was directed to the wrong seat
yeah,
by the
that's
usher.
right. Yes, I'm sure that
Right.
was definitely not your fault.
Well, it wasn't. So I've gone up to the usher, or one of those guys told you where to go. So I showed him my ticket, and he said, "Yes, sir, up on your right hand side." And I thought, "What, you're not going to walk me to my seat?" But anyway, so he didn't. So I've walked up, sat down. This is about an hour and a half before the game. Got there really early, and so the game starts. About 2 or 3 minutes in, these people start walking towards me down the row. Oh yeah, they're coming down. They're probably going to go on the seats, and they stop where I am, and they're looking at their seat, and they're looking at each other, and they're looking at me, and they said, "Oh, sorry, this is our seat." No, they're not. I said, "No, I've been here an hour and a half. They're my seat. I was directed there. The guy down there told me go and talk to him."
Can imagine the
And
attitude that you're giving them as well.
then I've decided to look at my ticket, and the freaking usher. He's told me to go right instead of left. So I'm trying to make my way out. Well, the game's already started. By the time made my way to my chair, some people weren't very happy. I was walking in front of them, not only for Bobby Hill's first goal, but for Bobby Hill's second goal. He kicked 2 goals in
Yeah.
the first couple of minutes. It wasn't until just as he kicked his second goal that I sat down. So even though I got there an hour and a half before the game, I missed the first 2 goals.
And so I
Jesus.
would probably believe you if it wasn't for the old airport or the plane incident, I should say. Was
Th-
that
This,
was,
this,
was that around the same time, the plane incident?
it was around about the same time. The plane incident was an example of the Mandela effect. Now, I'm not going to go into the Mandela effect. Anybody who's interested, go and look up the Mandela effect, named after Mandela, the Nelson Mandela, the South African president, or Prime Minister president. Um, what had happened? Quick story, quickest of stories. So I'm catching the plane to Melbourne, and I'm always very paranoid about my seat number for whatever. And I constantly check my seat number, make sure I know where I'm going. So I know where I'm going. I've got a ticket in my hand. I go up to the stewardess and show her my ticket, and she says, "Yeah." And this is very important. This point, a vital point. She said, "Yes, sir, up there on the left." She said on the left. Okay,
They
so
all
I've
say
got,
on the left, don't they? Well, isn't that what
no,
the...
the usher had said the right, I
Oh,
think, and it was
sorry,
on the
sorry.
left. Yeah, yeah. So I've gone up there, checked my ticket. Yep, this is it. Say it was 12D. So I've gone in, sat down, and won the first on again, nice and early. Other passengers have piled on, and I'm between two guys. Rightio. So there's been a delay. You got the stewardesses walking up and down the aisle. I know you're not supposed to call them that. That's why I do call them that.
Wasn't this meant to be a short story?
Yeah, no, but it's compelling. This is the short version.
Jesus,
So the stewardesses are walking up and down the
it's
aisle. And
my fault. I did bring it up.
they got their little clickers, and they're looking at people and they're clicking their clickers. Obviously, there's somebody short or somebody in the wrong seat. So they make an announcement. Everyone, please check their tickets. Somebody's in the wrong seat. Why would I check my ticket? Why would I check my ticket? I've checked my ticket a number of times to that point. The stewardess had basically directed me to my very seat. I know it's not me. So this is going on for a while. I'm looking at the guys next to me. I'm rolling my eyes. Oh, for crying out loud. How hard is it? How hard is it? I'm thinking to myself. So this goes on for quite a while, and they make a second call to check your ticket. Didn't check my ticket. It continues going on. And something inside of me just said, check your ticket. So I've checked my
Well, after the
ticket.
third time of them asking, yep.
No, after the second time, and then it was a while, and I've checked my ticket. Not only, and this is when the Mandela effect comes into it. Okay, so look up the Mandela effect. Not only was I on the wrong seat, I was on the wrong side of the plane. So just say I was in 12D on one side, where I was meant to be wasn't the seat one back or one forward, or even across in the same row number 12, but it was like 9A. So different row, different side of it's chilling, isn't it? It's chilling. A different side of the
It's chilling how
plane.
fucking stupid you are.
So I'm looking
See,
down.
this is what I have to deal with on the podcast every week. You can't
Um,
do the simple things.
I'm looking down. I think, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to play? How am I going to play this? So, so I've just got the stewardess's attention, and see, either I was in the wrong seat or everybody else was in the wrong seat. So it was pretty much me. So I said, "Listen, I'm in the wrong seat," and I got up, and I can guarantee you this time, Dermot,
Yeah,
all eyes were on me.
I believe you this time.
And I've started to walk up the aisle and I'm muttering apologies as I go. And I take my seat and I hear this giggling behind me. And I kind of half look in the little gap between the chairs at these two kind of young teenage girls just giggling to themselves as they look at me.
Old
And
kooky man.
that was spooky. The hairs on my arms and back of my neck are standing up as we speak because that was very much. I was in the right chair. The numbers on the ticket had somehow morphed into a different set of
That
numbers.
was the longest short story I've ever heard.
And the same thing happened in the footy that night. So you're
Yes.
not telling me the usher at the footy and the stewardess, they were both wrong. It's not like I was the only one who thought I had those seats. The usher and the stewardess both thought I had those
You
seats.
don't listen. You never listen. You're off in little Michael and looking around. Yeah, look at me, look at me. Not listening. You never listen. Like this morning, for
Spooky.
example, you said
Spooky.
let's start the podcast at
Yeah,
9:30.
9 o'clock.
And then I'm
No.
going for a walk at about, I think it's 9:10, and you mess, you what happened? You said 9 o'clock. No, you said 9:30. Once again, you being you, Mick. Right. So anyway, 2023, we went to the qualifying final. Not together. We were seated separately, obviously, because I would have made that mistake of being in the wrong seat. And then a couple of weeks later, that prelim against GWS, I was there. That was nerves beforehand because you get flashbacks to 2019, and that was almost the most intense 15 minutes of my life. I reckon that last 15 minutes of that prelim was just. I don't think anyone scored in the last like 10 minutes. It was just after that
Well,
Hogan goal.
how is anyone going to score when Brody Tapper to my feet Grundy was doing just that for the last 10 minutes of the game? Every freaking stoppage,
Remember,
bang
remember
straight to his
15
feet.
seconds ago when I said you don't listen?
Yeah, we talked about a different game, are we?
I'm talking about 2023, you moron, not
Oh, okay. I thought
2019.
we talked about 2019 prelim. Jesus, he was annoying. Don't bother tapping into space. We needed a goal to win. Sorry, I've gone back 4 years, but we needed a goal to win. What's Brody doing? Not tapping it over his head into space. He's tapping it down to his feet. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
2023 prelim.
You always,
GWS. Yeah,
and
yeah,
I think so.
GWS. Yeah, I remember.
Grundy played in that 23 prelim, according to you, and so did Taylor Adams. Remember, you were talking about how
Taylor
Taylor
Adams.
Adams
Yeah,
nearly
yeah,
stuffed up, even though he
yeah.
was out injured.
But had he been there, he would have stuffed up. Guaranteed. That's another example of the Mandela effect. In another universe, Adams would have been playing and would have been stuffing up.
So yeah, and then obviously the grand final. So that month, I just kept on traveling to and from Tassie to Melbourne, Tassie to Melbourne, and it was just the best month of my life. It was unreal. And then yeah, I similar last year got to go over to the prelim against the Lions. That was disappointing, but it's just between 2018 and 2025, getting to attend all these great prelims and grand finals and having so many highs and lows. I really feel lucky. I've recently, and I feel like that's in my way kind of like an end of an era because I only a few days ago I've sacrificed my Legends membership. So yeah, I feel blessed that I got to go see that. You're looking at me.
I'm
What?
just, I'm not going to say anything.
What?
I know. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I know why you've sacrificed your Legion member.
Well, why have I sacrificed my Legends membership? What's that mean?
You're a bit under the thumb, I
No,
suppose.
no, okay. Well,
bit, bit under the thumb.
I can't afford it. I don't even
You,
know how,
you
I don't
told
even.
you told you can't afford it. You've been told you
No,
can't
no,
afford
it
it.
was my own decision.
Oh, of course it was.
I don't know how to bring this up without you saying, "Oh, ringing 100 different bells." But I am saving up for a wedding. I'm getting married in
That's
December.
what they do. They make you think it's your decision.
I'm getting married in December, and it's just a year. I'm not really going to travel over to Melbourne. I really want to get across the Pendlebury's.
You're not going to do anything unless you're told you're
Yeah, I
allowed
really
to.
want to get across the Pendlebury's record-breaking game. I'm going to try and do that. Obviously, I won't have my great seats anymore. And if we make a grand final, I concede that I can't go because I've given up my legend. But I would still love to get across and maybe watch it on a big screen with the Collingwood fans. But I've had my time, 2018 to 2025. Like I'm not many people get to experience that many experiences on grand final day and prelims and highs and lows. So I can hold that close to me for the rest of my life. It's definitely the best patch I've had as a Collingwood supporter. I'm getting to go to those games, so very very lucky. I could be a Carlton fan, Mick.
Yes, yes, Jesus.
Imagine
Wouldn't
if Carlton fans that are I guess in their 50s, 60s, 70s, they're okay, but Carlton fans that are my age or Essendon fans that are my age, oh boy.
it?
Mm. Right.
Yeah, Carlton fans. I just remember in the early 2000s. So at that stage, the Carlton had never let their fans down. Carlton had the most premierships at that stage, were always at the very least a competitive side. They had their first drop off in the history of the game because the AFL had a crackdown on cheating, so they weren't allowed to pay you know a paper bag full of money under the table anymore. So they had their first ever drop off in being competitive, and it only went for about 18 months, and Carlton fans were already burning their membership cards. They're just disgraceful. They're the worst fans of any Carlton fans. Just disgraceful. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, sidetracked.
Well, you brought up, so we don't have any notes. Well, I don't have any notes. I think you might have a couple. You brought up, why don't we talk about the best players that we've seen and put a list together of
Collingwood players.
Collingwood players, our top 10 players that we've seen in our lifetime. Do you want to explain sort of
The
your right?
criteria.
Yeah.
Yes, we're criteria. This is basically the only real criteria is they must have we at least three great seasons. Okay, none of these like Jesse White types who didn't quite make the threshold of three
Jesse
great
White.
seasons. Jesse White looked like Tarzan, played like Jane,
W-
as they say. But so that's the only threshold, three seasons. So what I'm saying is premierships don't come into it. Premierships are a measure of a team's success, not an individual success. Okay, we're talking about individuals. Okay, so it's not premierships. It's not the fact that they played for 15 or 20 years. So at least three great seasons, but it's basically who was the best footballers, purely best footballers. So if you've got him in the in the schoolyard, and you've got them up against the fence, and you're picking your best side to have a footy match at lunchtime, what order are you going in? Your top 10.
Can I
That's what it is.
can I go first? Only because you've got more players to choose from than me.
Yeah, okay. Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
And I've memorized this. I've been
Are
working.
we going 10 to 1 to make it
Yeah,
the
let's
big
go 10 to
finale?
1. Let's go 10 to
Bang.
1.
Because I invented 10 to 1.
I'm really nervous about this. I feel like I'm going to change my mind in a week. This is the kind of thing that you might change positions in a week. Some of them are hard
Oh,
calls.
I've got one particular one, 5 and 4. Like depending on the time of day, I could swap them. But anyway,
I want to start off with a few apologies. Okay?
they're not listening to me.
No, just
They
a few
do real.
players that it was so close, especially for number 10. These guys were so close. Daisy Thomas, like between sort of like 2000 and especially his 2010, 2011 years, he was so underrated. Heath Shaw, by far the best small defender I've seen in my time as a Collingwood supporter. Jamie Clutch Elliott, Jack Crisp. You can't get anyone more consistent than Jack Crisp and a big game performer.
Jamie. Oh well, I'm thinking Jamie Elliott nowhere near it as far as top 10. But I suppose you've got a condensed period. You okay? Yeah, come on.
And the other one's actually Darcy Moore. Now, if you're talking in terms of the absolute best, Darcy Moore would probably slip into the top 10. Unfortunately, there's just too much of a gap between his best and worst that he can't feature. But Darcy Moore, he is a
You've lost all
great,
credibility.
great player.
You've lost all credibility.
He's a great player at his best, but he's just absolutely woeful at his worst. So, yeah, his best would have probably got him in there, but just too much of a gap. So we start at number 10, and I'll quickly go through and then you can sort of comment at the end. At number 10, I've got Darcy's mate, Jeremy Howe. I think he's the second best defender I've seen, and I think his best is pretty much even with Darcy's. I think their best are about the same, but unlike Darcy, he rarely plays a bad game, so he sneaks into the 10. And number 9, we haven't really been blessed for key forwards in our time, but Anthony Rocker is the best I've seen. So he slips into number 9. Number 8, the best defender I've seen, sort of forgotten by the AFL community, but definitely not forgotten by the Collingwood supporters. And that's James Clement. He's an absolute star, or was an absolute star. Number 7. So the top 7, I think there's a clear top 7. It's just the order that kind of is starting to stress me out. Especially number 7, 6, and 5. I think I swapped those three around multiple times. Number 7, I'm going to regret saying this because it's disrespectful to have him this low. Steel Sidebottom. Because he's so much more consistent, especially than my number 6. And even my number 5. And he's also a big game player. The next two guys that I've got are also big game players. But I just think your rule, and I kept on looking at this, they're sort of standing in front of me in their peak. And I was thinking if I could pick one of them for grand final day, who would it be? And even though he's a big game player, even though he's a star, Sidey was third on that list out of these few guys. So he's all the way down at number 7, which I feel really bad for. Number 6, and I reckon non-Collingwood supporters would be shaking their head saying that I have this guy ahead of Sidebottom because they wouldn't understand. I reckon there's maybe even a few Collingwood supporters that would feel that way, but it's Jordan De Goey. Uh, Big game player, big game player. Almost the best finals player I've seen in my time. He probably is the best finals player I've seen in my time as a Collins supporter. He can do it as a inside mid, as we saw in 23. He can do it as a basically a key forward, as we saw in 2018. He's just an absolute superstar. And number 4, I've got Alan Didak, and I switched him with the goalie about 58 times. I think he's just as good a big game player and got just as much X factor as De, but he's also done it more consistently in home and away football as well. He's like Jamie Elliott. He's had so many clutch kicks for goal, which he's nailed as well in the big moments. And like De, he can actually play midfield and forward. He spent a lot more time forward, but he had some huge games as a midfielder, Alan Didak. So I've got him slipping in at number 5. My top 4, 3 and 4, this one killed me as well. I've gone Nick at number 4. And I reckon by the end of the year he'll be at number 3. I've got him at number 4 because he's just simply the best. I think he's the best footballer I've seen play for Collingwood, but he's only done it for 3 or 4 years. I know that's sort of going against what
Yeah, it's
we've
going against
talked.
the,
I
yeah,
know,
the
but the
criteria.
other yeah, I know, but the other guys are so fucking good. The top 3, and they just did it for so long.
No. But no, it's the old put him up against the fence and pick him for the lunchtime footy game. You're picking him for a
No.
one-off game. You've screwed this
Ah,
up.
no, I'm sticking by it. I'm going Nick at 4.
I'm supposed to be the one who doesn't listen.
I'm going Nick at 4. I changed my mind so many times. He probably by the end of the year, if he does what Nick does, he'll probably be number 3. And by the end of his career, he'll probably be number 1. But right now, I'm going Nick at 4. He's played less than 100 games, and he's already at number 4. He's an absolute superstar. As everyone that's listened to this podcast from the start will know, he's my all-time favorite, Nick. And number 3, the one that I nearly had him ahead, is Swanee. I got Dane Swan at number 3. He's just as consistent for a 5-year patch. He would have been challenging Gary Ablett Jr. and Buddy as the best player in the comp from about '09 to maybe 2012. Like he was just unreal, Dane Swan, and a big game performer as well. A lot of people forget that he had some huge finals. And then 1 and 2. Number 2, as a lot of people
Here
can
we go.
imagine, yeah, this is the big. This is the one that I changed my mind on probably more than anything. I started off having this guy at 1, and I've slipped him down to 2, and that's Pendles. Slipped Pendles down to 2. Um, Over a long period of time, he's the best Collingwood player I've seen. And it kind of goes against how I separated Nick and Swanee. But in this case, I thought about who was better in their prime, and I think it was my number 1. But Pendlebury, Jesus Christ. Like, if you're going for career and who's had the best career, he's easily number 1. Easily number 1.
Oh yeah.
Consistency, big game player, basically a
Like
coach on the field. Like, he's just.
he could have people talk about Dusty with his 3 Norm Smith. Norm Smith are subjective. They're subjective awards. Pendlebury could have won 3 Norm
Yeah.
Smiths. He could he obviously was sick in the first 210. He won it in the replay. He could have won it in 2011. Losing side didn't help him, but he had 33 possessions. And to my mind, I think he won the 23 grand final. I think he was best on ground. As good as Bobby. Bobby was great. A lot of people were great that day. Yeah, he could have 3 Norm Smiths.
Well, here's the thing about Pendles. He was a superstar when he was 19, and he was a superstar when he was 37. Like,
Yeah.
he's just
No, he's just
unreal.
incredible.
We're not going to
Yeah.
have another player like Pendles in our life. Well, actually, mate,
Well,
wouldn't
Nick.
surprise me if Nick got there, actually. The way he looks after his body. But yeah, and then number 1, it's Bucks. Obviously, his career didn't go as long as Pendles. He had those soft tissue injuries towards the end. But I grew up, and Bucks was my man growing up. He was a player that made me fall in love with Collingwood. He was just he's the best I've seen still. At his absolute peak, he's the best player I've seen. So to recap, it's Bucks at 1, Pendles 2, Swanee 3, Nick 4, Didac 5, Geordie at 6, Steel Sidebottom, disrespectful, at 7, Jimmy Clement at 8, Rocker at 9, and Jeremy Howe at 10. And then all those apologies that I mentioned before. God, Daisy Thomas was a good player, wasn't he? I really wanted
He
to sleep
was,
him into
yeah.
number 10 ahead of Howe.
Yeah, just the ankle injuries kind of did him in, unfortunately.
Yeah.
He was a super player.
Ah, so good.
Um,
Right, you
yeah.
go.
Okay.
Actually,
Well,
what do you, before you go, what do you think of the top 10? Is there any?
no, a lot of players are on my list as well. No, that's all fair and reasonable. Yeah, died. You spoke about Didac. Like, how many finals did he win with fantastic goals? I
Hmm.
won't call them clutch goals because they don't meet the criteria of clutch as
Oh,
we've
yeah.
as we've discussed. But they were better than like, yeah, the Brisbane game, the kick from the boundary line, the draw against the extra time goal against West Coast. Um, not that he won the game, but in the draw and grand final, that left foot, the goal from the pocket, the
Yeah.
wrong side for him. He couldn't see daylight. He's just drilled it. Um, yeah, he was just a fantastic kick.
And so many other like big moments in home and away footy too. He kicked the winning goals as well.
Oh
Like
yeah,
he
his
was just
ability to go on ball as well. Like,
yeah.
did he have about 500 possessions in 2010? Did he play a lot on ball that
2010,
year?
nah,
Was it that
2010 was
year?
his, nah, 2010 was his, he led our goal kicking that year. He was mainly
Right.
forward.
There was a year where I think he had over 500
Yeah,
possessions
no,
on
there
ball. Yeah.
was. It might have been oh
So
07, maybe. Or
yeah.
was that,
But
was that
no,
one of the years he was suspended for half the year? Not sure. But yeah, no. How do you separate Didac and De Goey though? Like, oh well, maybe,
well,
maybe you have. I'm not sure if they're in your
well,
top 10 or yeah.
we had that question. That was one of the who's better, who's best.
Oh
We
yes,
posed that question: who's better, who's best at it to go in? Who won that when we put it out to the vote?
I can't remember.
I can't remember. I remember at the time I couldn't separate them. But I'm glad you went first because I've made some running repairs to mine.
Oh God, so
I've made
basically, my opinion means so much to you that you've now
there was
changed your top 10.
there was one particular player I had totally forgotten about. It's a bit like when we did our best sides last year, and I forgot about Scotty Russell, who was my one of my all-time favourites. I forgot about this guy. So unfortunately, my original number 10, who was Didac,
Oh, it was Didac. He's
it was
out.
Didac. So it was Didac and De Goey and I went for Didac. So
Oh, you
Didac was
did.
number 10, but now Didac is number 11.
And
So
what, De Goey was number 11 and number 12, is that right?
I assume so. They've all been pushed back one.
So,
So yes.
go on.
I thought I had this spot on, like I thought I had my airline ticket spot on. So Howe, number
How?
10,
Oh,
Jeremy Howe is number
so
10.
we've done the same number 10. That's
Yeah, just a true professional. The guy's just been such a great pickup. As we know, fantastic mark, great kick, which is underrated because he's such a fantastic mark, but bullet-like kicks. Um, he could play tall and he can play tall and small. Um, Not to the same extent as the next guy, who, as you said, they're the best two defenders I've seen at
yeah.
Collingwood. Clement at number 9. He
Mm.
could play tall and small better than anybody I've ever seen. Like, I think I've said it before on the pod. I saw him playing Fraser Garrick one week, and you didn't get a bigger forward in the game than Fraser Garrick when he was around. He was a
Yeah.
monster, absolute monster. Played on Garrick, beat him. Then next week he played on a small, I can't remember who it was, but he played on a small forward, tiny bloke, and beat him. So yeah, great mark. Always remember, like they changed the rules because of him. You're probably, probably might not remember this, but wasn't
It
an
was
Anzac Day
that's
match
what I've heard.
when he played on Herd. Yeah,
There's a
and,
famous video that's been up on YouTube for about nearly
yeah.
20 years. It's called James Clement is a cheat. I've heard him, and it's just all the, yeah, it was posted by an Essendon supporter, all the footage of,
Really? An Essendon supporter was
yeah,
it? Surprise,
yes.
surprise.
Because I heard he was on a podcast years ago, Clement,
Well,
and he spoke about that. So I looked it up afterwards, and
uh,
yeah.
well, if anybody could identify cheats, I suppose it's an Essendon supporter. Got a lot of experience in that area. But look, the ball, for those who are not aware of it, Clement was on Herd on the halfback, half forward flank. and the ball was kicked to them 3 times in the space of about 5 minutes, really quickly. Just 3 one-on-one contests. I was at the game. Clement did him cold every time, took clear one grab marks every time. And Jimmy was sucking it up at the end to the umpires. And because Clement, what he was doing, he wasn't pushing the back, he was holding his space, as at the time you were allowed to do. You could put your hands in the back and just hold your space, protect the drop zone. And that's what he was doing. He wasn't pushing him, he was just doing that, taking the mark. So, of course, when Jimmy sucks it up, the AFL listens. End of the year, no hands in the back. And everyone knows how many times it's gone back and forth since then. You can do it, you can't do it. You can use a hand, you can use an elbow, you can't use anything. You can push them right in the back now. But anyway, so yeah, great mark, great contested mark as well. If you take marks against Hurd, you're doing pretty well because Hurd was a great player. So Howe 10, Clement at 9. Structurally, the most important player I've seen at Collingwood in my 50 years, and that's Anthony Rocker.
No, you're copying me, Mick.
Yeah, that's Anthony Rocker. As we know, could play key forward. Very important as a second ruckman. That's how important he was as a structural player. Could go into the ruck. People forget he came second in the Copeland Trophy in '99 as a centre half back.
Yeah, right.
Now, those were the days when you would get a young forward and you would put him into the back line to learn the craft against the good forwards, and you'd return him to the forward line.
Unlike Darcy Moore, that's just
Unlike
never gone
Darcy
back.
Moore, who's never went back. Okay, he's supposed to have gone back, Bucks. We're supposed to have put him back into the forward line. So yeah, Rocker number 8. And squeeze side bottom now into number 7, having forgotten about him. I'd forgotten about still side bottom.
Hold on. So we've had the exact same players so far. Howe, Clement, Rocker, side bottom. You're just a copycat, Mick. You know I went first because you have more players to choose from, right?
Yeah, I know, but well, tell me. Well, you obviously agree with me because you agree with me.
Yeah, but you've seen a lot more guys. Like, where are these older guys at?
As I'm looking forward, there's one coming up, but there's not many different when I look at it.
Jesus.
Like I said, tried to get Chris Dalton in, but didn't quite get in. Number 7, side bottom. We all know how good side bottom is. Number 6, Mick McGuan. At his best, he was as good, believe it or not. You could put him in the same bracket as Swanee, as Nick, as Pendlebury, as Buckley. He was that good. He won a couple of bests and fairest. He just had a really bad run with injuries and probably wasn't as professional as he should have been. I don't want to be harsh, but with my memories of...
He's your mate. Don't talk down to him.
We spoke to him last week. Look, I've got him at number 6.
Last week?
Oh, sorry, last year. I spoke to him last year.
I
can't remember if we put that to him, but he wasn't as... He didn't seem as professional as he could have been. Yeah, apologies if I got that wrong, but yeah, injuries really had the big effect on his career. But he was Pendlebury-like, and he says that himself when we spoke to him last year, in that he was able to bring others into the game. Those around you, could bring them into the game.
I think he said that about his own. I think he said that about his son Tom, not himself.
No, he compared Tom to Zach Merritt.
Oh, he did too. Yeah, you're right.
Yep. He said whether I brought it up or he agreed with me or he said himself. But he has reminded me of Pendlebury, how he's able to bring other players into the
if you think Tom is in the same category as Zach Merritt, I have doubts believing him that he was in the same category as Pendlebury.
Oh, I think he meant he's in the same category of he plays like Zach Merritt.
I know.
Not that he's as good as Zach Merritt.
Yes, I get it.
Yeah. But McGuan was a great goal-kicking midfielder. And he could do lockdown jobs. I spoke to him about his battles against Greg Williams. They were legendary battles. He used to expose Williams' lack of defensive pressure. So he'd run off Williams a fair bit and create. They were great. They were great battles. Those.
I literally know who your top 5 are. Not the order, but I know 4 of the 5 are the same as me, and then there's another one.
Right, that gets us into our top. Now you could throw a blanket over 5 down to 2. Yeah, there's not much difference, especially 5 and 4. I don't know which is 5 and which is 4. It's Nick Dacos and Swan.
Yeah.
I've got Swan at 5, Nick at 4.
Okay.
Geez, how do you separate? I'm thinking maybe, yeah, given my criteria of who was the best player, so I can't take into account Swanee's longevity beyond that 3 year threshold. So I can't
I
say
don't know.
that. So
When they're so close, I think in that case you can. They're so close. That's why I was struggling.
you
That's what.
can't. It's against the
Oh.
wall in the schoolyard. You're picking them. All right, get it down. Get it
Well, you're not
straight.
going to go wrong either way.
Nah. Um,
So who'd you go? You went Nick
I
at
went
five
Swan
or
Swan at
Swan or four?
5,
Oh,
Nick at
Swan.
4.
Okay.
3, 2, 1 we got now. So
Oh well, we all know who these are.
uh,
Not the order, but who the players are.
can I make that Jesse White joke again? Um, Pendles at 3.
Yeah.
And over the years, like, when we've done this kind of like straight after the 23 grand final, I fell in love with it. Like Pendlebury was one
It
for
took
a
you that
couple of
long to fall
days.
in love with him, did it?
No, but for a couple of days there, Pendles was one. But that Pendles at 3, Bucks at 2.
Yeah.
Now, how I see Bucks, how I separate him from the 3 prior is that I like guys with a lot of strings to their bow who can go into multiple positions. Like Buckley was as good a midfielder as any of the others. Pendlebury, Nick, and Swan, as good, if not better. But he could also play key position. I've seen him beat Wayne Carey at centre half back. I've seen him beat Richo at centre half back. I've seen him go forward and kick 6 goals as a key forward. Like Pendlebury couldn't do those things.
No.
So that's where I separate them. And number 1, Peter Dacos, bang, easy. Now, I've spoken about Dacos many times over the years. So the reason I separate him, because again, he was an absolute champion in more than one position. He was a champion forward and he was a champion on baller. And there's only a couple. I know a lot of people have the ability, well, probably would be great in 2 positions. Gary Ablett Jr., had he played as a permanent forward only for an extended period, he would have been a great player. Dusty would have been a great player. Bucks, but Dacos, given the circuit, he actually did it. A bit like there was only a few who have done it. There was Lee Matthews.
Well, Dusty did it.
No, Justy didn't do it. Dusty didn't do it like a full year or 2 or 3 years. He might have done individual games where he's gone forward and had an impact because he had the ability. I'm saying he could have done it, but did he end a year having kicked 60, 70, 80 goals? No, he didn't.
Okay.
Yep. Jezelenko, probably the most versatile. He was a great on baller, a great forward, and a great backman. Alex Jezelenko, he was just amazing. Malcolm Blight and Lee Matthews, best player I've seen, Lee Matthews, they all did it. Yeah, so I remember Buckley talking. Buckley was a huge fan of Peter Dacos, and they asked him about Dacos, and they said, "Oh, how would Dacos?" This is the kind of late 90s, early 2000s, and they said, "How do you reckon Dacos would go in this era of flooding? He'd find it hard." He said, "No, he'd actually do better. He reckons he'd do better because he said the leading forwards are out of the game, so." Because of the flooding, the leading forwards weren't as prominent. He said the ball would be on the ground more. It would be more chaos footy in the forward line, and that's where he thrived. That's a good point. And he changed the way the game's played. He's one of those rare footballers. Like Polly Farmer changed it with handball. I believe Thurl Merritt changed it with the stab kick. And Dacos changed it with, he took the fluke goal from I will just have a ping at it. He took it from a fluke goal to a science. Because I remember him saying at the time, people were saying, "Oh, it's incredible you kick these goals." He said, "No, anyone can kick these goals. They just need to practice it."
He had the
training.
He had the Dacos ball, didn't he? Like
Yeah,
where it
yeah,
showed
the
to put your
Dacos ball.
hands and
Yeah,
for certain kicks and
yeah. So and it's proved correct. Now everybody does those goals now. Still, nobody does them as often as he did, but he took it from a fluke to a science. So Yeah, for changing the game, that alone, you kind of probably get number one. So that's it. So you
Well,
got
can I? Oh yeah, go through it again if you want to
yeah,
read it.
Dacos 1, Bucks 2, Pendlebury 3, Nick Dacos 4, Swan 5, McGuan 6, Sidey in at 7, Anthony Rocker 8, Clement 9, Howe 10. Apologies, Didac and DeGoey.
Very good list.
Okay.
But I will point out the elephant in the room. You're about what 72 years older than me, and
Yeah, that's right.
so
72. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you've
Yeah,
got a
correct.
lot. You've got a lot more players to choose from. We've got 8 of the same 10. Now, can I throw a few names, older names up for you? Tony Shaw.
To, yeah, Tony Shaw was a fantastic player and a fantastic um, captain and one of the most consistent footballers I've ever seen. But I take you back to the criteria. Okay. The criteria is who was the best footballer. I don't think Tony Shaw's biggest fans, or I'm amongst them, could say Tony Shaw was a better footballer than Peter Dacos, Buckley, Pendlebury, Nick, Swan, any of the guys I mentioned. Actually playing the game.
Okay. Yep. Gavin
Had a great
Brown.
career. Gavin Brown, again, as courageous as you'd come, as you'd find, the best, probably the closest to the best one-on-one footballer I've ever seen, like in a contest, but wasn't highly skilled. He wasn't a highly skilled footballer at all. He was okay, but fairly average as far as the skills went. He was what made him a success was his attitude, was his competitiveness. He
Darren
was just a beast.
Darren Mullane.
Darren Mullane, Darren Mullane, Darren Mullane was a shocking field kick. He was, he would leave the boot and you'd go off for a hamburger or something, and you'd come back and it still wouldn't have landed. Just big droopy kicks.
It's
Look
so brutal.
again, very, very good player. Very strong overhead for a wingman. He was a brute. He was intimidating. He was great to have on your side. He was a beast. He was actually he was an okay shot for goal. But what I'm saying with it was in relation to field kicking. Doesn't matter how long it takes to get there with a goal. But if you're kicking a field kick, you wanted to get there fairly quickly. And he was fairly inaccurate too as a field kick. His kicking really let him down. And I saw his whole career. Um, yeah, but yeah, good player, very good player, but no, not close to a top 10.
A couple
And
more, I'll
also,
chuck at you.
there's also the no, I won't say. It was also,
Okay.
when people die prematurely,
Oh God.
they inevitably attract these glowing endorsements from that point forward, and it's like their eulogy never stops. Like
All right.
yeah,
We'll move on from that. A couple more.
rest in peace.
Graham Wright.
Graham Wright, huge fan of Graham Wright. Huge fan. Run and carry. Really dangerous as a forward too. I saw him kick 7 against Gary Ayres at Waverley one day, and Gary Ayres was one of the best backmen I've ever seen in my life, and he just didn't have a clue. He was like a jumping jack. He could just jump really high from a standing start and take contested marks. But we know him mostly as a wingman, and he was vital to Collingwood's success in the late 80s, early 90s. But there's only 10 spots, Dermot.
Yeah, no, I'm just throwing up a few older ones
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's funny that you just went 8 of the same 10 as me because like they're all said to be modern day. So I want to talk about a few of the older guys because I was expecting you to have quite a few of these guys in. I'll chuck maybe 2 more at you, and we're going way back. So probably your childhood. Renee King.
Rene Kink, yeah. I've spoken about Kinky, talking about best and worst. If you're talking about somebody's best, he could be the best player in the league, or he could be one of the worst players in the league. From week to week,
So similar to Darcy then, Darcy Moore, in terms of like
in terms of that, he is and not only week to week, quarter to quarter. He said himself. I saw him interviewed by spoke about Tony Shaw before. Tony Shaw interviewed him about 10 years ago. He said, "Yeah, sometimes I'd kick 4 goals to half time, and I think that's good enough, and I'll just put the cue in the rack, and he wouldn't do anything in the second half. It was a conscious decision. He was a fantastic player. You go back and you look at some of those finals in the early 80s, just kicking, like he kicked 6 against Waverley, out of Waverley against Carlton in 1980. Took Geelong apart in '81 final series, kicking goals from some of the best goals I've ever seen. But I think I've told you before. De Goey reminds me of
Yeah,
Kink.
you have said that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. In that they were just brute. They were a brute who could go into the midfield, or they could come out of the goal square and take contested marks. And yeah, just their speed in the first 5 meters was yeah. So yeah, just no consistency though with Renault Kink, unfortunately.
One more because we don't want to drag this on too long. Phil Carman.
Oh, a bit before my time.
Oh, was he?
I saw Carmen play for North Melbourne against Collingwood. I was 82 out at Arden Street. Billy Picken played on him. He played a good game, Carmen, because Picken was at the height of his powers. I only know what I've read and seen. Carmen was apparently the buddy of his time.
Sorry, I thought you'd actually seen him play for Collingwood.
No, not for he left Collingwood. Well, Hafey kicked him out, ridiculously kicked him out at the end of '78. So I started to go to the games in '79. So I just missed him. I would have seen him play for Melbourne and Essendon as well against us, but I remember the North Melbourne game. Yeah, I was. I said to you before, there's 1 degree separation between Carmen and Bucks because Dacos played the one night game with Bucks in '90 at the start of '94 against North at Waverley. They played the one night game together for pre-season match, and Dacos played an inter-club match with Carmen at the end of '70, at the start pre-season of '79, I think it was, from what I've read. So Dacos played with Carmen, and it was after that point that Carmen was then cut and went to Melbourne. So yeah.
I actually, one more player just crossed my mind,
Oh
and
yeah.
I know your opinion of him, but for the listeners, they'll probably be saying, "What about this guy?" Sav Rocker.
Yeah, another case of the best and worst.
Hmm.
Another best and worst player. Just too far apart. We only spoke about him recently. Like at his best was Tony Lockett like unstoppable. Like just contested marks, kicking him even better than not more accurately, but certainly further than Rocker than Lockett. He was any time he'd get it within 65, he was a chance. He was a bit of a chance, but just he didn't. Sometimes I think because he came from an athletic background, was he a shot putter or something? I don't think he took up. I think he was fairly old, relatively speaking, when he took up footy. So sometimes I think he suffered from that. He didn't have that ground in footy. Obviously, he came from his parents were Italian, so maybe they didn't have a lot of appreciation of the game. So sometimes you see that in the guys who come over late, some of the Irish guys and American guys, that because they don't have that ground in, they don't always have the consistency. But yeah, so yeah, just best and worst too far apart.
That is going to be fun because I've been holding on to this one since before our top 10 because you mentioned him. And you constantly go on about how you're looking for a new whipping boy now.
Oh yes,
Now
who
Will
we got?
Hoskinellen's gone. No, I don't have anyone. But you brought up Jesse White, who was
Oh yeah,
previously one of your whipping boys. I mean, he's everybody's whipping boy. I'd like you to go through some of these guys for more of a in a light-hearted way. Some of these guys that maybe you didn't love as much. Because I'll chuck a couple to help you.
I'll just quickly. Yeah,
I'll
keep on
go
going.
straight off.
You say, and I'll just write down a couple before I go.
As a kid, I remember you hounding on about a few guys. There was Woeful, Shane Woden,
Oh Jesus, yep. Christ.
Shane O'Brien. You never liked Cheesy O'Brien.
He's 30-meter torps on the run. Jesus.
Obviously we've ticked off Hoskin Elliott and Jesse White. I think after his 2018 season, he never really played another good game, and you could never get around Josh Thomas.
Nah.
Sure. If you're going real obscure names, Benny Kinnear.
Yeah. Oh, was he a whipping boy? Was he? He just.
You hated
I
Ben
just
Kinnear.
did. I think I
And
remember
Tristan
seeing him.
Walker as well.
Kristen Walker. Yeah. Normally, whipping boys, you have to have been a regular player
Yeah,
in the
well,
side because that's how they become whipping boys because they frustrate you week after week after week. Whereas these Bankineer, Tristan Walkers, they never really nailed down a position, so they didn't have that consistency of awfulness to elevate themselves to whipping boy status.
awfulness.
Uh,
Jared Blair after
yeah,
his good
Jared,
start to
after
his
his
career.
first season was his best and only good season.
I think 2011 he had a
Nah, you
good
keep on
season.
saying that. Nah.
I think his second season was actually better. But yeah, he went through this phase, little Blairy, where towards the end of his career, he would just constantly come in and slide into people's legs. Do you remember that? And gave away stupid frees. It was
Yeah.
just
Oh, I don't know.
who
I just
who
towards the end, whenever he got near the ball, I'd divert my eyes. I just didn't want to see it anymore.
who have you got? Have you got anyone else?
Well, going right back, and because I was younger, maybe my appreciation for the game, my knowledge of the game wasn't as much, and maybe I was a bit harsh on him. But Peter McCormack used to annoy me.
I don't
Peter
even know who that
McCormack,
is.
yeah, Peter McCormack came to the club in '76 as a full forward from Assumption College. Okay. And then we turned him into a full back. Maybe another one of those guys who went back and then never got forward again, like Billy Picken did that. But yeah, he became our full back. And maybe it was because, in fairness to Peter McCormack, he did play in the era of a lot of good full forwards. And there was no third man over the top back then, so he was one out, and he seemed to always have a lot of goals kicked on him, like Michael Moncrief and Michael Roach types, and they'd always be kicking goals on him. So I was doubting him for that, and I remember he left the club at the end of, I want to say, about 80, 84 or so, and he went to Fitzroy, and no, it was at the end. No, it was at the end of '85, and he went to Fitzroy. And I remember watching him when he played inter-club games. I used to go to the training more back then, and there were a few inter-club games, and you go down and watch him. And McCormack would be playing on BT. BT went to Collingwood in '85, and BT would always destroy him in these inter-club matches. And I think he even might have played in him a couple of times when he was at Richmond. So all the Collingwood supporters knew that McCormack couldn't play on BT. Okay, so McCormack goes to Fitzroy in '86, I think it was, comes back to play Collingwood at Victoria Park. BT's a full forward who wanders down to play on him. Like David Parker was coach of Fitzroy at the time. All the Collingwood supporters just rubbing their hands together because they know what's going to happen. How a senior coach didn't know this is beyond me. BT kicked six on him in BT kicked six in the first quarter. And
Was he
then
moved off him after that?
they put Gary Pert on him, and BT kicked three more after that. Yeah, so yeah, McCormack was very much a whipping boy.
I'll throw someone else at you,
Yeah.
which is it's your number one whipping boy of all time, and I don't know how we've both forgotten him. Have you forgotten? Do you know who I'm talking
I
about?
think I'm writing down his name right now.
Just say it.
Is it Tony Francis?
Oh no, it's not Tony Francis.
No, Tony. You remember Tony Francis would get the ball in the centre. He'd run. First thing he'd do, he'd run in the opposite direction as he's weaving, dodging in and out of players coming towards him. He'd be weaving back, and he would end up 20 metres further back towards the opposition goal. He would then turn around and he'd grab the ball 10 metres along the ground. Bang! There's your possession. There's your stereotypical Tony Francis possession.
Are you ready?
I told him to get rid of him. Why he was trade? Why we could have got something for him as a trade? I was screaming out, get rid of him, like Bobby Hill last year. Get rid of Tony Francis. They held on to him for a couple of years. It became blatant obvious to the entire competition he was no good. He goes to St Kilda, we get nothing. Go ahead.
Your number one whipping boy, without a shadow of a doubt, Haruti Lumumba.
Oh, Harry. Yeah, we had the Harry O'Brien rule. Do you remember the Harry O'Brien rule, which I coined?
Was that putting the dumbest player on the smartest player?
Oh no, that's nothing. We'll get to that.
Oh.
We'll get to that. But the Harry O'Brien rule is if Harry O'Brien's got the ball, within 5 seconds the opposition will have possession of it. That's the Harry O'Brien rule.
He was good in 2010. He had one good year.
Playing the easiest role in footy as a halfback flanker without
Is
any
it is it
responsibility
the
at
hard
all.
is it the easiest
It was
position?
it was in those
We
days. It's
well
not as easy
I'm about
now,
to
but
say because like Dan Houston's making it look fucking hard at the moment.
yeah,
So
no, it's a bit harder now because the opposition put more time into those guys. But back in its infancy, back in those days, that it was the easiest role in footy. You had no accountability, and you went just ball chasing.
but in fairness, he played that same role his whole career, and 2010 was his only good year.
Are you defending Harry O'Brien?
I'm
Seriously?
defending his 2010 season. I'm not defending him as a player overall.
What you touched on, 2011 grand final. You had one of the smartest footballers I've ever seen in my life, Stevie J. And who do you reckon Mick Malthouse is going to put on him?
Or let me
Well,
guess.
who's the brains trust going to put on him?
I'm gonna say surely he would make the obvious move, maybe an Alan Tuvey or a Ben Johnson or
You'd be
some
wrong. You'd be wrong.
oh
You'd be wrong. No, that's foolish. What you want to do, who you want to put on the smartest footballer ever, is the stupidest individual, not just footballer, stupidest individual ever. I bet you what he was doing. He was too busy trying to make sure his recorder was working in his footy shorts because he was secretly recording Stevie J during the whole match so he could use it against him at some later point because he would always, in a secretive manner, record all conversations. For crying out loud! I remember. Sorry, you've got me rolled up. I'm rolled up. I remember one particular stoppage in the grand final. It was in their forward 50, forward pocket, probably about 40 out. Um, so Harry's meant to be on Stevie J. Stevie J's on the attacking side of this stoppage. Where do you reckon Harry's going to line up? Where's he going to position himself? Where do you reckon he'd position himself?
honestly, I actually wasn't listening. Go on.
He'd
I've heard
position,
these rants so many times.
he would position himself next to Stevie J. Of course he would.
Oh,
No,
right, yep.
no, he's on the other side of the stoppage. The ball gets hit out and rolls to Stevie J, who turns around, snaps a goal, nobody within 5 meters of him. Harry on the other side of the stoppage, about 20 meters away, just looking at him, probably wondering, will my recorder pick up his voice from here? For crying out loud. Yeah, okay.
That's good.
Uh,
I honestly, I think Harry is one of my big whipping boys too.
Oh.
Him and your mate Jesse White. Jesse, I used to call him Jessica White, as you used to say. What was it? Built like Tarzan, played like Jane. And
Yeah, it looks
there
like
was just
Tarzan
this
plays like Jane.
period, and I blame Jesse White for this. In my early 20s, when Jesse was in the team every single week, I'd sit down, and there was about I think 2 or 3 games in a row where he missed a crucial goal directly in front in the last quarter. I remember one was against the Hawks, one was against Freo and Perth, and there may have even been another game around about that patch. And I'm just losing my shit, right? And at the time, I remember after this patch, this 3, 4 week patch, my partner at the time, who I lived with, decided that it would be best that whenever Collingwood were playing, that she would go and spend a few hours up at her parents' house because they lived about 5 minutes away. Go visit them because she couldn't bear being around me going off at Jesse White anymore. He drove my girlfriend out of the house. So it's not my fault. It's Jesse White's fault. It was just and in friend of the show, Oscar, who I mentioned before, lived with me then as well, and he's a Collingwood supporter, obviously, and he had to go in his room and watch the games because that was a period where we couldn't even watch the game together because Jesse White was turning me into a man I wasn't proud of. So there's that.
I understand Oscar actually when he went to his room one time, he jumped out the window and ran away from home. It got that bad.
But I want to quickly, but we'll wrap this up soon because we've
Oh,
been
just
talking for a while.
one more whipping boy. My mid-90s whipping boy was Stephen Patterson.
His daughter plays for Collingwood now.
Yeah, I know. I'm forgetting why I disliked him, but I disliked him.
Did
He
you
used to drive
know
me
that
nuts.
his son, I'm pretty sure, is meant to go top 10 in the draft this year, but we can't get him as father's son because he played about 96 games?
Oh, yes, I did know that,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm willing to sacrifice that. Just in case he's inherited any of Pato's skills, I'm willing to forego him as a father son, just in case.
Before we wrap up, I want to talk a little bit because when we first started this podcast, especially when we did the blast from the past, if any of our original listeners remember, we talked a lot about obscure players. So I want to kind of talk about a few of these names that don't get mentioned anymore that we quite loved. And as I said, the original listeners will know my love for Ryan Loney. That man, especially 2002, 2003, fuck, he was an excitement machine running off that half back line. His beautiful bombs from outside 50. One of the best kicks for goal on the right I've seen. He was great. Another player I loved was this guy. Is he really obscure? Because he gets talked about once a year, and that's Mark McGough. He was a for he was our next big thing, obviously after Anzac Day, winning the Anzac Day medal as a
Yep.
17-year-old. And I remember when I was like 7, 8, 9, I did Buckley's Brigade. If you remember that, Buckley's Brigade, where Nathan Buckley and a
Yes.
bunch of other Collingwood players would hold these clinics down to Victoria Park, and it was hundreds and hundreds of kids that would float down there wearing the number 5 on their jumper. Other than me, because you made me be different and get the number 17, Scotty Burns. Desperately, I wanted the number 5, but no, 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 you can't be the same as all the other kids, says Milk.
No, it can't be.
But there was, yeah, at Buckley's Brigade, I remember we went down into Victoria Park change rooms, and one of the players, can't even remember who it was running through a few things to us, and there was these cardboard boxes behind us, and I remember hiding in one of those cardboard boxes was Mark McGough, and we've been down there a few minutes, and it was starting, the other Collingwood player was explaining whatever he wanted. All of a sudden, Mark McGough jumps out and scares us all, and I like that. He won me over that day, Mark McGough. So good memories there.
With
What?
those eyes, I don't think he needed to hide in a box to scare the children.
Is he related to Alan Tuvey? They've got
Yeah,
very
it could
similar
well
eyes,
be.
don't they? But yeah,
Could
they're
well
two of my
be.
favourites. A little bit after that, about the sort of 2009 era, Brad Dick. Loved Brad Dick. Little Dicky, number 33, the Indigenous small forward. You remember him, Mick?
Oh, of course, I remember him.
Yeah, yeah.
He would regularly have
Big
shots for
game. So,
goal.
yeah.
Like
And
every game, you guarantee he'd have 4 or 5 shots for goal. But unfortunately, like that'd be like 1-4, that type of thing. Yeah, he used to
yeah.
miss a lot. Like,
Little Dicky, the Queen's birthday specialist, had a really big final in that Jack Anthony final against Adelaide. Played really well. Jack Anthony's another player I really liked. One of the best set shots I've seen.
he was a phenomenal set shot.
Unbelievable. Paul Medhurst, especially,
Mm,
he was a big game player. Played some good finals for us and had a
mm,
great 2008 season where he was all Australian.
mm,
Loved him. The list goes on and on. There's
mm,
the late Andy Cracker. After we
mm.
won the premiership in 2010, we got him in 2011. Played a great grand final. Had a good
He
year in
did.
general. I ended up getting
He
his
did.
number on my back because despite all those great players like Swanee and Didak and Pendles and Daisy and all that, I still decided to get the number 7 on my back because
Which was odd because you were older than 16 at the time.
I think I might have been exactly 16, maybe I was 17, but
Yeah, older than 16.
yeah, Rupert Preferis, I'll take him before you do.
Mm.
Going back again to that
Yeah.
2002
No,
era.
his 2002 final series, and even it was the 2002 final series, 2003. Can't remember. Played a great final series. Yeah.
Little David King, he probably played less than 10 games, kicked the winning goal for us against Richmond in 2004. We were at that
Yeah.
game. Not the North Melbourne David King, little blonde man, wore Clokey's
Yeah.
number 32 before
Had he
Clokey joined
played
us.
more, he might have qualified as a whipping boy. I reckon he had that feel about him.
But yeah, I think that's just obviously no notes. All those guys just jump off the top of my head.
Well, one to jump out for me was one of my favourite players growing up was Craig Davis. He was a
Father of
very
Nick.
father of Nick. He was a great player, really smart. A footballer's footballer, I think they call him. Really, really smart football. Football IQ was off the Richter scales with that guy. Yeah, so he was unlucky not to make. He'd probably make my top 15.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, he was a really good player. Yeah.
Anyone else that you kind of just like maybe just not even the best player going around, but for some reason you just really like them.
Mm. No. Oh, look, there probably would be, but none of them come to mind without. You have to remember in my early childhood, the late 70s, early 80s, we were in a lot of grand finals, but we weren't a great club.
Hmm.
We didn't have a great team. We had the Tommy as I bagged Tommy Hafey out earlier on by saying he stuffed up with his training, and he did. But on the other side, he was able to take very average sides that probably would have been flat out making finals to grand finals. Um, so there wasn't a lot of great players. Pete, Bill Picken, of course. How could I forget Bill Picken? He was my favourite player growing
Wow,
up
he's an interesting
in the
omission out
early
of your
teens.
top 10 then.
Yeah, yeah. He is an interesting omission. His kicking was very. Had he played these days, they would have cleaned his kicking up a bit. They wouldn't have,
Mm.
because he was an awful field kick. Again, he wasn't a bad kick for goal when he did go forward. Kicked three in the 1980 grand final in the second half from centre half forward. But a field kick, he was a very poor field kick, but he was a one of the best marks I've ever seen. He was just a very spectacular player, which was easy to be drawn to him as a kid because of that. And he was a great, great finals player because in those days, they used to bomb the ball into the forward line to the key forwards. There wasn't any lowering the eyes business. It was mostly bombing into the forward line. And being a great mark, it was like a picnic to him. He'd just take contested mark after contested mark because he wanted them to bomb it in. So he was a great finals player of his day. Yeah, but I'm sure there's others don't come to mind.
Um,
Peter Moore was grossly overrated, I believe, as a footballer. But
you just don't like the Moore family.
yeah, maybe I don't.
Mm.
No, look, I'm sure they're very nice people, but yeah, I'm not sure about Peter's possible future daughter-in-law. But other than that,
You meant
yeah,
Darcy's.
no, Peter's daughter-in-law,
Oh,
it
sorry.
should be taken.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, but let's yeah.
Before we wrap it up, we'll end. I reckon we'll end talking about maybe a few of our favorite games, maybe outside of.
No, no, no.
Okay.
I've got to touch the macabre. A really good
All
one.
right, we'll end the podcast with that. We'll talk about our final favorite games, and then we'll end
Okay.
the podcast with that. Very good. So, off the top of my head, we'll talk about outside of grand finals. That it always goes back to that. Well, both the 23 prelim, but also the 2018 prelim against the Tigers, massive underdogs. Despite I had a really good feeling that day, and but we were massive underdogs. Richmond hadn't lost a game at MCG for about 20 odd games. And then obviously Mason Cox and Goey and all those guys put on a clinic. And my best mate is a Richmond fan, so yeah, that was beautiful to get over the line there. Tarnished a little bit by the next week, but still great game. Um, yeah, you talked about extra time game 2007. Alan Didak, he had a great game. Daisy Thomas, who we spoke about, Paul Medhurst, who we just spoke about, had a great game, and Pendles and Swanee kicked the Sealers in extra time against the Eagles over at Subi. Funnily enough, they had like Ben Cousins, Daniel Kerr, and Chris Judd all missed that game. So really, we should have probably won by more, but still great times. And then the Hawks in 2011 prelim. All those games that sort of stand out of those great sort of prelims or sudden death finals. If I'm to touch on a home and away game that isn't the Chris Tarrant one, um, obviously the Jamie Elliott ones against the Blues, that last game of the year to get us in the top four and to knock them out of finals, and then Jamie Elliott again and after the siren against Essendon, and Jamie Elliott again the following year against Port Adelaide in that top of the table clash. They all stand out as the best. But if I'm going to go an obscure game, and I'll end it with this one, a really obscure home and away game. My favorite would be, I think it's round one, 2007 against North Melbourne. They had quite a big lead, and we came back, got the lead, and they might have got the lead again. It was a maybe goal for goal in the last quarter. I remember Scotty Burns and again Paul Medhurst kicking a few important goals. And then seconds left, Heath Shaw or Shannon Grant takes a mark about 50 out. Heath Shaw just runs over the mark, 50 meters, basically in the goal square. Not quite. He should have been right in the goal square. The umpire kind of ripped him off, but basically still 15 out directly in front. Shannon Grant hits the post.
He should have been on the goal line.
His goal line, yeah.
Yeah, he should have been on the goal line. The
And
umpire
yeah.
took him to the top of the square.
Yeah, that stands out as a kid as yeah, just a big moment in my childhood. It's just one that I won't forget. It's not very often you think the game's well and truly over, and then all of a sudden, bang, yeah, hits the post from directly in front of goal. So that one stands out as a obscure sort of game that I relive. Probably a couple of times a year. It crosses my mind for whatever reason. What about you?
Oh, it's been so it's non-finals, is it?
Oh, well, just non-grand finals, but there's just
Non-grand.
whenever, yeah,
Oh, look, as I said before, the semi-final in '81 against Fitzroy, probably the best game I've seen. Been to the Port Adelaide game a couple of years ago at Footy Park, not Footy Park, Adelaide Oval. Was it 23 where Josh Dacos and Elliot both kicked goals in the
yeah,
boundary line. We
yeah.
win
I
by a
mentioned that
point.
one. Yep,
Oh,
yep.
did you mention that? Oh, I was
Yep.
tuning now. I was thinking about stuff I wanted to say. Um, yeah, game like obviously just like Anzac Day, first Anzac Day match, the draw. Um, that was fantastic. But I suppose a draw, obviously, they're not as good as a win, but it was an exciting game, so that stands out. I just so many over the years.
I love how we've
Too
gone this
numerous to
long
mention.
talking of draws. Sorry to interrupt talking draws and not mentioning the 2010 drawn or even a 2010 premiership. Really, it's like we're speaking about
Yeah.
1990 and 23, but 2010 hasn't really come up in this conversation.
Well,
That,
that's one we if we they shouldn't have got anywhere near us in that first grand final.
nah.
We were so much better than them, which was reflected in the second grand final.
Hmm.
That's how better than we were a 5 or 6 goal better side.
Well, what we
What did
did
we end up?
to
We won by 56 points, I think, didn't we? In
yeah.
the grand final. We were a 4 or 5 goal better side.
And we proved that
And
the week before against Geelong. Like that's another game that I should have mentioned. That
yeah,
was one of my
yeah.
all-time favorites. Like Geelong were, in my opinion, a far better team than St Kilda, and we smacked them. We were up by about 80 points at one point in that
And then we just
prelim.
took our foot
Yeah,
off the
that would
accelerator
have
and
been a huge
cruised
choke
through.
if we had lost that drawn game.
Oh, like freaking Clokey missing those two sitters going into half time. It left us 24 points up. We should have been best part of 40 points up, and that would have been about the game. That left the door ajar. And we had a fairly average second half, didn't we? And we
Hmm.
just, you know,
And then our boy
um,
Leon stepped up and he got
yeah,
that, yeah, kicked that big
but
goal. And it's so unfortunate he was dropped the next week, isn't it? And like I would have
yeah,
loved to have seen him become a premiership player. As much as I love Tyson Goldsack, like it
yeah.
just would have been so nice to see Leon get that
But Ben,
reward.
Ben,
But
yeah, Ben Johnson in the last couple of minutes of that draw. I have to go back and look at, but I just remember Ben Johnson being influential and just he was just getting a little because it was bobbling around their forward line, their half forward pocket area for what seemed like minutes. It might not be true, but it seemed like it was in there for a whole
yeah,
lot of time in the last couple of minutes. It was living in there, and Ben Johnson just seemed to get a fingernail on it here, a foot on it there, just to keep him at bay.
one of the most
Um,
underrated players I've ever seen, Ben Johnson. We talk
yeah,
about Ryan Looney's kicking from outside 50 for goal, but he was up there as well. He never missed, and I agree, he
yeah,
was huge in that game. And
mm,
and I'm just thinking about that draw now. Like we look at 2023 and we think about that the moment at that resulted in the goalie goal with the Nick Dacos hands and well, Cox to Pendlebury and all that, and then ends up in a goalie goal and then side bottoms long bomb from outside 50. But it won't get ever talked about in this sort of category because we didn't win the game, we drew the game, but. Nick Maxwell running off his man in the 2010 drawn grand
yeah,
final,
yeah.
taking that huge risk, intercepting it, playing on. I think ended up kicking it to
Didac.
Didac, who kicked it to MacArthur, who bombed it to the goal square, which resulted in Clokey giving us a lead before that bounce and the ball equaled it up
Even
again.
Clokey couldn't miss that one.
But that was such like we wouldn't have won that premiership without that moment because they were all over us. I
Mm,
doubt we would have kicked the goal.
yeah, yeah.
If it
He
wasn't
just
for
made it
Maxwell
happen.
taking, and he knew that. That's why he took the risk. He
Yeah,
knew that we weren't going to kick a goal unless he did something like that, Nick. And he played.
yeah, yeah,
He gets a lot of shit from the opposition supporters, Nick Maxwell. But that grand final, people talk about how Goddard should have won the Nom Smith. It was Lenny Hayes who had a great game himself, and people talk about maybe Daisy Thomas on Collingwood side was our closest. I think Nick Maxwell was nearly best on ground for us that game. He played out of his
yeah,
skin. There was also that Nick Revolt had that shot at goal and it was
yeah,
bouncing. It looked like it was going to go through and he sort of jumped on it. He's just had some big moments in that game, Nick. And yeah, and people talk about, if it went into extra time, St Kilda would have easily won. But everyone's forgetting that we did actually kick the last goal of the
yeah,
game.
yeah.
So, like,
Oh, you
yeah,
normally hear that from people like Brendan Goddard talks about that,
hmm,
and it's always St Kilda people who talk about how they would have won. Yeah, well, you've won one in 150 years.
hmm,
Yeah, yeah. Like,
hmm, yeah. And then
would you have won it?
And then,
Probably
like,
not.
you sort of look forward to the next week. Then, obviously, I think if you put the two games together and you looked at 8 quarters of football, I think Daisy Thomas ended up being the best player over those eight
Yeah,
quarters. Yeah, he
troubling.
was unreal. And Darren Jolly, a very underrated sort of pickup for us, was great. Still so, but obviously Pendlebury won to Norm Smith the next week, but he didn't have a great draw on because he was
Oh, he was
ill.
sick.
He was
He was
sick.
ill. Yeah.
But then we talk about how great Sidebottom was and how we talk about how Pendlebury was a great player at 19, then again at 37. Well, Sidebottom's a great player at what 34, whatever he is. He was also a great player at 19 because I think he was it second in the North Smith voting or in the drawing grand in the replay. I
I
think
can't remember, but yeah, no, he
yeah,
played well.
I think he
Yeah.
was second to Pendlebury or maybe third. He definitely got North Smith votes. So as a 19-year-old, he was and I think even the year prior, we go back to the Adelaide semi-final, which we'll talk about that again. He was huge in that game. That was his first season side bottom 2009, and he played a huge final that in that semi. So yeah, good times around that sort of period. I think it's important that we sort of touch that period because yeah, and then the next year in 2011, the best Collingwood team I'd seen. Like forget about the 2010 team, the 2023 team. I know we didn't win the premiership, but that is the best season I've seen Collingwood play. I think the
Yeah.
highest percentage in the history of the game. It would have been even higher if we didn't lose that last game by about 100 points to Geelong. I think it
96,
was,
yeah.
yeah,
96 points.
I still think it was about 180 or something like that, despite
Yeah,
that.
well, it
But
did get up to 180. Yeah.
and then maybe it went down after that, but it was just
Yeah.
that was a great period. We should have won two flags out of that, or two or three. We were just as good as Geelong, Hawthorn, St Kilda. I
Yeah.
think St Kilda are the best team I've seen that haven't won a flag. I think they were very unlucky to come up against teams like Collingwood and Geelong. But
There were
yeah,
a few things going on off the field that year, which there's no way of measuring how much impact off-field issues have. You can't measure it because you don't know what would have happened had they not occurred. But there was the David Cloak, not David Cloak. What's David's Travis Cloak's
drive, yeah.
um, contract negotiations. He was
Mm.
basically playing silly buggers with the club.
And then the Mick Moldhouse
We
thing.
Yeah, but we should just told Cloak, okay, if you got this big offer from Fremantle, take it, go ahead.
Mm.
But basically holding the club to ransom, trying to hold the club to ransom is how it appeared in the media at least. Then you had Mick Malthouse thing going on and his appearance on the footy show, making the comments that he did. And then you had, Heath Shaw suspension late in the year for betting.
Oh God, I forgot about that one.
Yeah,
Bloody sure.
that really hurt us because by the time he came back, he wasn't match hardened. He was no longer. He was vital to us, as you said, that running halfback flanker.
Best
And
small defender I've seen in my
yeah,
time.
and he just didn't have the match fitness. Just unprofessional. Like he bet on Maxwell to kick the first goal of the game because he knew he was going to start in the forward line, something like that.
Was
He
his
was down to TAB in Eltham.
Was he
with a
really?
mate on CCTV
Oh,
putting
what an
bets on.
idiot. Was his punishment worse than James Stevenson's? I can't remember.
I think something I can't remember, but it was in that ballpark. Wasn't it like 10 weeks or something?
Yeah.
You know,
He got suspended so many times here, sure, I can't
oh
remember.
yeah,
It's just
like yeah. So there was a lot of unprofessional things going on off the field, which who knows if they had an impact and to what extent, if they did. Yeah.
all right, we'll wrap it up with your touch of the macabre,
Touch
Mick,
of the macabre.
because it's been a
This is a
very,
good
very
one.
long episode.
This is really good. I was listening to the Rest is History podcast, which just pipped us for Spotify Podcast of the Year last year. They
Yep.
won it. We didn't.
Runners up.
And what's that?
We were runners up, were we?
Oh, well, who cares who cares after who won it? Like, who cares about second best? I think we're up there. But but I think you've heard me talk about Rest is History podcast before. It's a really good podcast. It just takes any historical event and they'll talk about it for a couple of hours. Genghis Khan, the Great Fires of London, whatever it is. But who do you reckon? I was listening to one last week. Who do you reckon indirectly contributed to literacy going to 100% in England in the late 1800s? So before this point, only a small, they didn't say what percentage, only a relatively small percentage of people in England could read and write. So who indirectly contributed to literacy reaching 100%? And keeping a bit of a clue, the topic is a touch of the macabre, so that gives you a clue.
Michael, can you please hurry up? I need to pee. Spit it out.
Oh, I was going to say Brett Teagle, but he's a different question to it. I've got a question about Brett Teagle later.
The podcast is about to
Jack
end.
the Ripper.
Jesus.
Jack the Ripper
Right,
inadvertently led, they reckon, to literacy going through the roof in England. The reason being, they had these little books, like little true crime books for kids called Penny Dreadfuls. And after his spree, kids ate them up like freaking like lollies. They loved them. They couldn't get enough of these books, Penny Dreadfuls, which was true crime books. And that, they reckon, led to literacy being 100% in England by the late 1800s. Jack the Ripper. That's fascinating. Brett Teagle, which is directly above Jack the Ripper here. Didn't I see Brett Teagle at a? Didn't I see him at Collingwood? Is he on it? Is he playing?
Bryn Teagle.
Oh, Bryn Teagle. Isn't it Brent?
Bryn. No, Bryn.
Bryn.
Yeah, he's on it.
What's his name?
Bryn.
Bryn's not a proper name. I'm calling him Brett.
Oh, an ice cream truck just drove past. I guess it's Australia though. Yeah.
Brett Teagle. What is he in our VFL list? Is he?
Yeah, I believe so.
Is he a chance to get? We're talking about like a ruckman in the last episode.
Maybe. We're not touching on the preseason for this episode, Mick. This is just a trip down memory lane sort of episode. We could.
Well, you just said it was a conversation at the start where we can talk about anything.
Well, no,
I'm talking about Brett Teagle.
Brent Teagle.
Okay, there you go. Jack the Ripper. Wasn't for Jack the Ripper, Englishmen would still not be able to read and write.
All right, so speaking of episodes, if you haven't already listened to our first preseason episode where we actually talk about the current Collingwood list and events, then go back and listen to that, or the panel show as well, which was an absolute ripper. We were joined by Andres from Black and White United and Pat from Paddy's Pies, as well as the great man in front of you there, Mick. He was on board as well. So go back and listen to those two. In terms of future episodes, I actually gave the wrong date for our panel show on the last episode.
You got one job, Dermot.
Yeah, I know.
One job.
So for our February panel show, where we'll be joined by Paige, Grubman, and Serge, I said it was going to be on the 3rd of February. That's actually the night we're recording it. So it'll be released on the 4th of February. And I bring that up because there's every chance that will actually be our next episode. Mick and I, we may be back before then, we may not be. It really depends on events over Collingwood training in next week, if there's a lot to talk about or not. So that's where we kind of sit at the moment. It looks like you want to say something, Mick?
Oh no! You just remind me. I was out and about in the Sandy Bay community yesterday, and I got a. I'll tell you next time. I'll tell you a story next. I'll tell you this.
Quickly spit it out. You won't remember next time.
Yeah, I was out and about in the community taking my daily walk, and gotten to know a few people on my daily walk. I've been held to the very bosom of the community here. And one of my neighbours around the corner runs an antique store from his house, and I often pop in there, do a bit of antiquing. And I was walking past it yesterday, and he's got his beloved VW van out the front, and he's got it for sale. So I've gone in. I said, "Oh, yeah, Dave, you're selling your VW?" He said, "Yeah." So why is that? He said, "Oh, it's just time, moving on." He's a bit older than me, and he reminded me of another guy I knew about 20 years ago. And I thought Dave might know him because he'd be about our age and he loved his VWs. I said, "Oh, yeah, I knew this guy, Keith Miller. He loved his VWs. Do you know him?" He said, "Yeah, he's my brother."
Fascinating. Right.
That just demonstrates what a small town Hobart is. Like, I just brought this guy up randomly to another guy, a neighbour, and it's his brother.
May have to cut that out. But anyway, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. We look forward to doing it again soon.
Spooky.
See ya.